5-Cylinder Symphony and Land Rover Toolbox videos are sponsored by MPB 4x4 Independent Land Rover Specialists. Nanocom, or Black Box Solutions, they basically make electronic diagnostic equipment just for certain Land Rover models. And of course with the D2 you'll probably need something like the Nanocom, which is more Land Rover orientated than the other type of interfaces that you can get. Now, I've heard good reports about Nanocom, however I do not own one, and Nanocom are not really willing to let me have one on a trial basis. So if you're interested, you can browse the forums and you can have a look on their website, and there'll be a link below to give you a little bit more information about what their equipment actually does. Generally, we're only going to plug in something when we have a breakdown, and some of the professional breakdown organisations may not actually have the equipment to get your Land Rover going, so they'll have a quick look and then cart you home or take you to a garage to get it looked at. So it's worth investing in something. Now, this is my choice, or one of my choices, is a Hawkeye Pro, mainly because it is not only for Land Rovers. It has EOBD settings, EOBD1 and EOBD2. And going through the main menu settings, we have in alphabetical order European and Japanese cars that are sold in the UK exclusively. If you're happy just fixing Land Rovers is okay, but if you have a family and you have other cars in your family, you might well want to invest in something that covers a little bit more, because you know the female is going to be the one who tells you whether you can buy the equipment or not at the end of the day. And I presume this still applies to female Land Rover owners whose partners would get their balls mauled off if they don't spend the money the right way. So anyway, with this Hawkeye Pro, I'll just show you a little bit more about it before we get on with the tutorial. Basically, it does cover all the ranges of Land Rover at the moment. However, we have to live in the real world, some of us, don't we? Anyway, getting on to the Land Rover style of fanny magnet, the Range Rover Sport that we had in the workshop the other day. This is a member of staff's one. Come up with a DTC regarding the diesel particle filter, and it needs a regeneration, and no surprise that we can actually regenerate the DPF with this Hawkeye Pro. Right, so we're going to change the ECU on this Discovery 2. Now this one actually came up with a fault because it had oil in the plugs here, and this is a very common fault, as you know if you've been following us along. Oil creeps up and it will eventually get into the ECU. Surprisingly, the oil actually climbs uphill to get into the plugs, which can cause serious problems. So a quick change of the injector loom, which is under the rocker cover here, and this should stop the oil coming through the plug in the first instance. You'll also find that, like we did on our Discovery here, that the oil also climbed up the loom into the fuse box. You can see the oil on this relay. So whatever reader you have, just happens to be the Hawkeye Pro here. Discovery 2 EMS engine management system, Td5, turn the ignition on, read DTCs, which is diagnostic trouble code. So we have a fuel temperature fault active, which actually is, which come down to this sensor here, which is unplugged. This is a DTC that can't be wiped because it's not reading a temperature sensor. The other one that we got was top side switch logged as failed pre-injection. Okay, so you can actually Google a lot of information about the top side switch failure. Plenty of forums. We eventually got to ECU testing, which told us that topside switch failed is a common problem. If it's not a wiring fault, then it will be the capacitors in the ECU, according to experts. So we got on to MPB 4x4, which supplied us a second-hand ECM unit. Basically, the two numbers, which is the MSB 101183, the two matching numbers. So we have an ECU which is from a manual Discovery Td5. So what we're doing here, swapping them out, and then we're going to program the ECU for the vehicle. Scrolling through our Land Rover menu, I'll find the right vehicle first. Plenty of selections here. Discovery 2. Click over into this engine management system, EMS, and we want the Td5, ignition's on. So what we want to do is go past and down until we get to programming. Yeah, okay, a new Td5 engine control module, which the current tune is set at STHDE015. Right, so the tune menu, you have some selections of manual Euro, manual rest of the world, auto Euro, auto Japan. Basically, this is the performance or the tune of the ECU for the vehicle, and basically this is emission controls more than anything. So we have a Euro, whatever it is, on this present vehicle. Okay, so we selected it and tune is successful, and it's basically telling the ECU which regulations it's going to work for. Right, so we can go out of this and go into read injectors first. Okay, now when you change an ECU, you also need to program in each of the injectors, because these have selective numbers. Okay, so you can set them. I'm not going to show you here because I actually already have done that, but you need to code each one of these injectors in turn. Just to refresh, each injector has a code on it. If you don't know what they are and you didn't lift them off the ECU before you replaced it, then you take them off the injectors. The counting sequence is 1 from the front until 5 at the back. Okay, so throttle pot is another interesting one, because you either have a 3-track throttle pot or a 2-track throttle pot. Basically, this is the throttle position sensor, potentiometer. Basically, I'm resetting it in the ECU to tell it which one it is, because I know this is a 2-pot one, or 2 potentiometer type. Right, so I've got to count down 15 seconds. Once that's done, basically all of these interfaces, I'll tell you to turn the ignition on and turn it off again, and it's learnt the new throttle pot. Right, so now we want to go on to immobilization, and security status is secure. Do you wish to continue? Test it. Codes received. So now we don't have any immobilization issues with the ECU. Right, so that's basically it. I've just put a Td5 ECM into this vehicle, and it is easy as that. So next thing to do is to go and have a look at the DTCs and see what DTCs are actually in this ECU. Okay, so read DTCs, and what we have here is ambient pressure low, fault logged. Possibly on the last vehicle it was fitted to, airflow and fuel temperature active. So once these have been deleted, it will, look, we've got EGR, valve has been stuck closed. Well, it's not actually fitted at all. So we'll clear all these DTCs and then have another look to see what appears.